Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Uday Athavankar with us on Audio Gyan. Uday Athavankar is a professor in IDC IIT Mumbai and is on the advisory board for several international research journals. He has been committed to education and research on design and design-related consulting for over 30 years. Uday sir has written many papers on product semantics and communication and role of mental and design process as well as design education. It's a real honor to have you on Audio Gyan. Thank you, sir, for giving us your time and welcome to the show.
Thanks for calling me. I think it's a good opportunity for me to talk about what I would like to on the whole topic of design.
Yeah. Sure. So we'll be there are a bunch of things to be discussed, but I have tried and kept our topic very close to role of design in society in general. So the first thing which I want to ask you is, which is will set the premise to this entire conversation also. Okay, what is the role of design in the society? I mean, can you tell us how a well-designed system can impact our lives?
Okay, let's take this question in two parts. First is the role of design, then we'll look at its impact separately. The reason is the word design itself doesn't have a very clear definition. It has such vast scope. Right from a person who does rangoli to a person who is designing a car, both of them are designing. So if you want to look at design as a profession, then its role can be defined in many ways. First, to improve quality of life and living. That's a primary goal of every design.
Correct.
But then you find that everything doesn't fit into that. For instance, rangoli doesn't improve the quality of life. So the second thing that's important about design is that it brings in new experiences.
Okay.
So rangoli is an experience, or even going to a restaurant is now an experience. So it brings new experiences. It also extends human capabilities. A simple example is camera is considered as an extension of eyes. Hammer is considered as an extension of a hand. They get you to perform better than what you can do without them. So every product sort of adds capability to human beings. There are new roles that designers are taking up now, and that is because of digital and non-digital kind of areas. For instance, building communities was never a part of design, but with digital media being there, that has become a principal task. So you build a community through which you can support human life. One simple example of that is Facebook. So there could be social communities, there could be purposeful communities. So you can build that communities also.
That could be also virtual as well as personal life.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes the virtual can lead to a real life.
Correct.
Besides that, the complexity of design is changing over a period now. It's not what it used to be. You expect it to deliver value, you expect to improve the quality of life, but at the same time, you want to make the product sustainable. These sustainable issues have come into play in the last 20 years, and they're becoming more and more important. So if I improve a quality of life, but my work or my product is not sustainable, and it is actually creating a lot of waste, or it's using material that cannot be recycled, then it's not good design. So these are generally accepted as the roles of design.
Looks like a very broad definition.
No, it's broader. It's broader than this. Look at India for that matter. A role of design in India is to do all this, but then it will get restricted to only people who purchase products. There are a large number of economically weaker sections of population to whom design can definitely serve if you look at it differently. And this is exactly what we're trying to do in my institution. One of them is, can you create jobs using design, or can you create livelihoods using design? And I'll give you examples as we go along how this kind of thing can be done. So this is unique to developing countries, where design should take more responsibility than what it is expected in most of the Western and advanced countries. Your second question was about impact.
Correct.
Yeah. Again, I'll divide this into two. The tech-based product, the impact of tech-based product, and the second one is the impact of the traditional non-tech-based product. They've been quite different. For instance, traditionally you had simple machines like washing machine, or you may have a mixer grinder and all that. It primarily makes life a lot more convenient for a housewife. It removes drudgery and it saves her time. Correct? So it does improve her quality of life. It makes life, work more pleasurable. But this is, we are now going far beyond when the digital economies have started coming in. For instance, if you look at banks, for that matter, there used to be long queues before, and you stand there and you go to the counter, give your check, and the person will cash, or sometimes the check is sent back for verification, bring it back. Whole process used to be an event, going to a bank.
Correct.
What has ATM done? And it just simply cut that. Okay, all that you got to do is insert a card, put a password and or a PIN code, and you get your money. Besides that, you get it 24/7. So it adds to the quality of life, removes drudgery through a very different means than the way traditional product is. Interestingly, going to a bank can be an event for people who have time. For instance, we were working at ATM. We looked at some of the old senior citizens who go to bank, and we asked them, do you like to come to bank? Why don't you use ATM? They said, no, but this is where we meet people. So the point that I'm trying to make is that when you improve the quality of life, it's not for everybody, but a large number of people. There will always be some people who would probably not get included because the requirements are different.
Correct.
Okay. I can give you another example of this. For instance, you look at ATM, you find that it has changed the life and the way people handle money. Earlier, if you want to go travel, first thing you do is to go withdraw money, make sure that the bank is open, go take a bulk of cash and travel.
Correct.
People don't bother to do that anymore, and it is never safe to do that either. So all that they do is to make sure that they have balance in the bank, so they can go anywhere and withdraw that money.
Correct.
So they don't have to carry it.
Yeah.
Okay. We found this by accident, in the sense that the fantastic advantage that this gives you by accident. When we were working on ATM design, we met a hawker. Okay. He was a panwala, he was betel nut selling. He would work till about 9:30, and the day's earning, he had a problem. How do I carry it in the second-class train compartment when I go home?
Correct.
It's quite likely that somebody might pickpocket him and say, his worries are very understandable and valid. Yeah. So what he did is he got one of his gawalas to explain him how ATM works. Every night after he closes his business, whatever that he needs for next day or at home, he keeps that money with him, and rest of it he puts into ATM.
Wow.
So for him, ATM is like a safe. Instead of keeping it in a safe, he's keeping it in the ATM, and which is a very valid and interesting way of looking at things. So many times, though you may design it for dispensing money, people may appropriate that product and use it in the way they benefit.
Correct.
So finally, they are improving their quality of life by exploiting what the product can offer, and which is many times more than what designers ever intended. So now there are issues. For instance, when you designed an ATM, the first thing we encountered is a lot of senior citizens felt that this is not for them. This is for young people, because they're thinking they're flouting cards and go around and it's a machine which we cannot handle. So let's go to the counter. we had a situation where when we were studying, I gave my card to an old lady. She was maybe in her 70s or so. And we asked her to operate. And said, withdraw 500 rupees. And just explain the basic things about it. She did it on her own. And after that, she was so surprised. And the first thing she said, I did not know it is so simple. I don't have to stand in the queue anymore.
Correct.
Okay. So many times there are these apprehensions that machines are complicated to use and, I have to learn something and all that, which prevents people from using them. But once they know that this is easier, then they very quickly adopt. And 5 years later, when we did a survey, most of the old people had ATM cards, and they were very proud of it. In fact, younger people are not proud of it because everybody is expected to have, and it's not anything to have an ATM card. But for them, they were very proud of it. I have an ATM card. Interestingly, products, the way people relate to product also changes. For instance, we met one young girl. She must have been in her early 20s or so. She said that I still preserve the receipt that I got, first receipt that I got from ATM when I withdrew money.
Oh, okay.
Just to keep it as a memory. So people many times fall almost in love with that product and try to preserve those memories. Provided the product is delightful and useful. It doesn't happen for every other product. Nobody will have memories about dustbin, but they will have memories about things which are very pleasant.
Yeah.
Now, in design, you try to create some of these things deliberately, saying, okay, this is something which I want people to remember. So you create the kind of interactions that are required in order that the person is happy about it, delighted about it, and remembers that. So besides the functional use of the product, there is also a psychological use of the product which keeps kind of balancing with each other. Okay. So these are two very important things. Just to give you an example now, digital banking came. Okay. Again, a lot of people found it a little cumbersome to go into, computer and try to kind of either transfer money or make payments and all that. But those who crossed that border and knew that they can do it are very happy with it because they don't have to go to bank. Just ask somebody what was the last time you went to bank, and people say maybe 6 months. That means they don't even remember what it is. So this is how a product and technologies can help people, how design can help people. Making that interface so simple that even an older person is able to transfer money or withdraw money from the bank or whatever makes it a kind of not just a delightful experience for him, but it removes the drudgery of going to the bank all the time. Correct. Of course, he has all the options. When he wants to go to the bank, he can go to the bank, but he can also do it from home. And this is what we do now. Earlier, you remember to pay your monthly bill of MTNL, you go stand in a queue somewhere. And it takes about first is the travel, then they go stand there and then pay the money, and now all that you got to do is to just transfer that money on the bank. That's what's happening with all the billing. So it gave a lot of time to people because these things could be done very fast. So this is how design and technology help people in their day-to-day life. And this is an impact that people have. Now I have that extra time, I can do whatever I like. I can waste it also, but that's up to an individual. But the fact that I made that time available itself is good.
Correct. It's so interesting. In fact, that like puts me in the next question, which I already thought of right now, is that as you mentioned, people used to stand in the queue, and I see still people standing outside Dadar, where there's a lot of big queues for paying the DST bill or some things like that. So you've built the Indian postbox or the low-cost ATM, and now you're also working on affordable housing. So I want to understand what is like the role of design, or how do these design institutions come to like such grassroots level and try and make a difference in normal lives?
There are three things that one must notice. First is that you choose to work grassroots innovations because you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pay to be there. So if I'm a commercial designer, I would not find returns on that by working there. So it's just a choice that people make. It's like some people join NGOs rather than join corporate. So it's a choice that people make. Yeah, nothing in the country or a policy in the country encourages you to work for poor. That's one. The second thing is the reason why these things fascinated me is because to observe people adjusting to the life gives you lots of ideas. A lot of people have created their own ways, convenient ways of solving a problem, which as a middle class person I could never have thought of. Just example from ATM. Okay, not many people put money in ATM. They don't think it's too complicated a process. There's too much of tension and things like that. Because it has a limited time and it has an alarm. So people sort of avoid putting money into ATM. But it has, some of the machines have that capability. They put in an envelope and put it in. This hawker, we were surprised when he says he puts money in the ATM every day. So we asked him how he did it. He had such simple and effective way of putting money with no tension whatsoever. All that he did is to perform a blank transaction, got the envelope, he prepares the entire envelope, seals it, goes to the bank, puts this envelope and gets another blank envelope back for the next day. It's so simple, right? Now, this could have been thought of by the designer himself, no? When he designed an ATM, saying people have this tension, why can't I do something by which, but this doesn't occur to him because he says, no, people will learn. But the person who is not literate, a person who is poor, finds a way out of this, and these ways are fantastic. And all along, even in affordable housing for that matter, we were working to find out, first is, you can't really start working on affordable houses unless you know how people live. Okay, and all of us know a little bit, you cross through slums somewhere, looked at somebody's house or things like that, but that's not enough for design. You need an in-depth understanding of how people live. So we decided to spend a lot of time trying to find out how people live. We went and photographed their houses, but we found that none of them wanted to talk to us. None of them wanted to talk to how they use their house and what delights them and things like that. They say that a lot of these educated people come, study, go, and nothing happens to our lives. So why should we talk to you?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, simple.
Not like it would be embarrassed to do.
No, not because of them. They're very proud. And fantastic things they do in their slum, which they're very, very proud of. So we had, first stumbling block was, if you don't know how people live, how do we design the thing?
Correct.
So we created some interesting game-like environments where they play with cards. And we have beautiful stories coming up of what they do with their house. One simple example of that is they were given a blank room set up and asked them to populate it with furniture. Most of the time, a middle class will think about where he will receive guests, where he will sleep, and where will children study and all. These families first decide where the TV should be. Okay. Then, with respect to that TV location, they decide where the activities are. Which is something which a middle class will find difficult to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no connect only.
There's no connect on. So, and we found we have huge number of insights of how people live. For instance, another one was, everybody wanted an entrance experience. This is something which is difficult to decode. So we asked them. He says people should know from outside that it is my house. Even if he is economically weak, he wants his identity to be known. Okay, so, and you can see that a lot of them, even in slums, do a lot of decoration in their houses, and particularly on the entrance door, mainly to identify them as being different than their neighbors. Yeah? So we started getting very interesting insights. Then we looked at, we started with that idea, these are slum dwellers, so they should be all same. Okay, this is the way policies are defined. Government has a policy of giving 320 square feet or something like that to everybody. We found that there are different personas within slums who need different things. We met a tailor who was probably having the smallest house of 8 feet by probably 10 feet or something like that. That's only one room he has. That contains kitchen, that contains bedroom, that contains his shop. He's the one who initially said that I don't have time, I can't talk to you. When you start playing those games, after 2 hours, we have a video record, after 2 hours he says, shall we play more? So he kept on telling his life stories, how he came and what he did with his shop, where was he before and all. So we got a lot of insights into how they live. He needed something which is close to some public transport system, close to a school, so that he can send his children to school and also do his business from within. So he needed some corner or something like that. Not any house, but something that's visible from outside.
Correct.
And he says he kept on changing locations till he got a place where he has returns, economic returns on. So his considerations were quite different than another person who was slightly better off financially. He wanted to make sure that his children have place to study. So we gave them different names, for instance, different kind of labels. So there were these were settlers, who ultimately would by the next generation will go into middle class, because they made sure that entire money goes into children's education. The children get educated, they get married, and they also get a job. Okay. While the tailor didn't have enough time to worry about what the children do, they said, they could let them go to school and whatever happens, happens. Then there are younger people who stay in slums. They have very different. They are hedonist. They consume products which are flashy because they want to show wealth. There was a situation where his room is completely full of glazed tiles because it shines. And we won't use that. There was another lady, she was a tailor. She says, I need a good bathroom, and the word she uses, jinchak bathroom. Because once I go, I'll come back dressed and things like that. And she was a tailor and a fashion designer and things like that. So each of these different personalities had their own aspirations of what a house should be. Unless we get these aspirations, how would we design? So a lot of time was spent in trying to understand that. Then we also realized that these houses have to be close to the place of work. And the place of work for them is rich people, because they serve them.
Correct.
Now, that's where the land is the most expensive, because rich people stay and the land cost is almost, several times more than what you can go and stay in distant suburbs. So we decided to look at this as a challenge. How could we create affordable housing in a costly land and still allow the people to stay there and over a period expand to reach that 320 square feet that Maharashtra, but without any subsidy. So that was a challenge that we took. The second challenge we took was interesting. I gave a project to the student. This is a student project, saying that a family of 4 with 2 parents occasionally visiting should stay in a room of 10 feet by 10 feet by 12.5 feet. That's because that's FSI regulations, building regulations permit that to be 100 square feet FSI. Now you give such odd kind of things, people first reward, saying it's not possible. These students over a period struggled and made this possible. And they showed how the entire family can stay. And that is also that 100 square feet with a toilet. Okay. So we realized that if you want to work on such projects, then you need to create out-of-box questions. The question we created is, what happens if a house is sold not on the square feet? You buy on a square feet. No? Okay, I have 500 square feet, I have 550 square feet. What happens if you sell it on volumes? Saying that I have 5,000 square feet, cubic feet of you will suddenly find that we waste a lot of space typically. Okay.
That's never been.
Then you start using all the space on top. This I can do this, there I can do this, because I paid for it. The second question we asked was, what happens? A very strange question. IKEA wants to enter this market. IKEA is a company which caters to higher middle class.
Correct.
Okay. What happens if it enters? So it gave us very interesting insights as to how you can create components which people will use to customize their house and create furniture and things like that. So to me, these challenges are not just design challenges, but also serious challenges that society needs to face. How do we cater to this particular thing? Because whatever you do, even if you give free houses the way government gives, over a period, newer people will come in, the slums will continue to exist, and there's no political system that prevents slums from coming. So these are when you said that how it helps people, my suggestion or my answer to that would be, it not only helps people, but it helps designers, because they get very unusual challenges.
And realistic constraints as well.
Constraints. And these challenges are really something which you would not get if you work for rich people, because there's enough money there.
Yeah.
So that's the...
Interesting. I mean, this just broadens the entire perspective of how design is seen, right? Yeah. Now, in case, can you also tell us some case study about the postbox which you did? What were the constraints and how did it come about?
Okay, that came from the government. They said we want a postbox which can actually be emptied very fast.
Okay.
Somebody's fascination, and in government there are a lot of people who have fascinations. Okay. So this was some secretary's fascination, saying we should be possible to very quickly. We studied that problem and realized that a postman who goes on a beat and clears 13, 14, 15 post boxes, if you save even 1 minute of it only saves only 14 minutes. That's one. Second is, even in the current system where you do it by hand, you pick up a bunch of put them in the bag, it takes only 130 seconds. Okay, which is not really much. So even if you save something from that, it's not going to cost. But then this was a fascination of somebody, so we said, okay, we'll take that as a challenge. But our concern was not so much what government wanted, and that's exactly what the designer should look for. Is our concern was the user. What do users want who use the post box? What do postmen who empty the post box, what do they want? What does the postal system demand? Some very interesting data came out of it. First data was that a lot of people in the old traditional post box where there is that cap and on the head, it used to kind of hurt people. That's one. But one interesting thing, a lot of people said, I want to know when is the next clearance. Immediate clearance you are writing, saying it is being cleared at 3 o'clock. But after that, what happens? Because if I don't have time, I must know when my next post should come, and
Correct.
I should put that in the post box. So that interesting information came out of it. Then a lot of people said that we sent our children to drop a post box, which would mean that you need a post box where children as well as grown-ups can comfortably mail letters and without getting hurt.
At that height also.
At that height, so we needed studies about what is the correct height and what is the correct way of putting, by which both, because there is so much the height difference between the two. Then we also realized something interesting. When we talk to the postal authorities, they say our concern is that post boxes get burgled. And why do they get burgled? Not because anybody is interested in the mail. People are interested in the lock.
Achha.
The lock used to be a brass lock earlier. Okay, and that brass lock was made in Aligarh, and Aligarh locks had good resale values. So people will cut the lock and take it away and leave the thing there. Now, that was a huge loss to the, because every time you have to replace that with a new lock and thing.
Correct.
So we thought we should be able to find a way by which a lock cannot be removed, which is of course there in many other cupboards, it's inside. The main problem that they had is that in case he loses the key, how do we have access to the mail inside? Because otherwise it will get delayed. So we had to devise a system which is a kind of a secret way of opening that, which others don't know, so that you can still release that and the lock is still inside. So you can see if you look at it in 360 degrees, the problem is very different than what you start with. You started with something like fast clearance of the mail, but actually the problems were very different. I personally spent my one round with the person who collects in Fountain and went around trying to kind of understand his way of thinking and how he operates and interacts with the system. So after some time, because Hutatma Chowk is that way very crowded, so the mail is, because offices are there, the mails are, so it started becoming heavier and heavier, but he would still lift. So I asked him, why don't you use a trolley? At that time trolley was not a very popular thing. Now it's a style, but it wasn't there. He says, "Nahi, wo hamal ka kaam hai." So he had social status more important than the fact that he has to carry the weight with him. So he would not mind carrying it on his shoulders, but not use a trolley at that time. Now, of course, things have changed. Trolleys have a status, so people will be willing to do that. So a lot of functional and psychological issues are sort of meshed together. And if you want to design, you need to kind of go into the depth of it to understand what governs. And that's what I did with postbox. And since then, postbox was my first product in early 70s. But I've been doing this all the time. Spending time with users, trying to understand what they need, what they aspire, and try to see how we can learn from that. And believe me, I've been doing this for almost 45 years now. And there is no project in which people haven't surprised me. They will always come out with something which I could never have thought about. So actually design is a lot of learning as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, actually this leads to my same question, because like a designer like me, or at least designers like me, will have a very specific question in this context, that as you mentioned about the postman being what if he loses the key. Now the products which we design in the contemporary age of media and digital things, we would consider that to be an edge case and actually override it and say, like, let's not bother about that, but let's make someone's life better at this stage and take it further and not think about this grassroots level. So is this approach good? Does working at a grassroots level makes you account that use case also?
Actually, I dispute with this basic statement that work for majority. There is another method which actually proposes that you work for extremes and not for majority. Because what is good for extremes will also be good for majority. So we look at these extreme cases and try to see how I can solve that.
But then the trade-off is that you don't get that polished products like Apple and like, right?
No. I don't think any need to. In fact, you get better innovation if you look at extremes. I'm not saying necessarily poor people. If you are designing a aid for handicapped, physically handicapped, then it's good to work with person who is severely affected and try to solve that problem. In the process, you also solve everybody else's problem. So, and this is a recognized way of doing it, to work for extremes. It's not my idea. It is recognized as one of the methods, is to look at extreme cases and work.
Yeah, I think this needs to be slightly dwelled upon, because I have not been exposed to that kind of a school, but I aspire to, definitely. The next thing which I wanted to ask you is, how do you identify which domain to invest time and effort while working on this grassroots or any design system for that matter?
Again, there can be two separate answers. If I'm working on a commercial assignment, then the deadline is given by the client. So you divide your time on the best way you can. But personally, I've been spending at least 40 to 50% of time trying to understand user before I design. So even if it's not paid for, I will do it because my ideas will come from there. So it's required that I do that. But that doesn't mean everybody will necessarily do. The second important consideration is what is the client looking for, or what is the company looking for, which gives you a job. Many times designers would want to make substantial changes, come out with a completely radically different idea. But the company may be looking for a small change, saying, okay, this is working, it's fine, but if you add this, it will work better, or I'll have better sale or something like that. So first thing I do is to try and understand what is the degree of change that you're looking for, rather than venturing into innovation all the time. Like affordable housing, I needed to work radically differently. Needed an innovation there. But if I work on some other simple project, then I won't look at that at all. I look at degree, and then I have developed my own method of trying to figure out. Because every client, once they pay money, they kind of expect that you will come out with an innovative product, but they will never market. Okay. So the best thing is to try and understand what is it that he is looking for, and I've developed my own strategies for that, and then offer him one that makes a small change, the way he's looking for, or the problem demands, and the second one is to show that you can also go here and create something new. In most cases, he will appreciate the second, but do the first. That's the way it works.
Yeah. And in case of non-commercial projects?
Non-commercial projects are interesting. In fact, I do a lot of these non-commercial projects. Then I said that, look, I am not taking money, so let me do what I want. So I become an artist there, saying that, look, let me dream my own things. It's not that I'm going to come out with something which is not useful or anything like that. But I try to see that, I have the freedom. It's like, when you participate in design competition, you have all the freedom, and nobody tells you, don't do this, don't do that. So on a project which is non-commercial, I do that.
Your own constraints, basically.
Yeah, I put my own constraints, I put my own, aspirations there, and say that let me do that.
So, but how do you pick that domain that this needs some work to be done?
Okay, that requires a lot of experience. For instance, if you... I think, let me take an example of games for that matter. Okay. I realized at one point that games can be useful to teach what teachers struggle to teach in the class. Okay. So I decided to try that out and created games which taught how fraction gets, how to understand fraction and how to, through a game. So there is no motivation required. Children play because they enjoy.
Correct.
And in the process they learn. And there is, I'll show you, later on I'll kind of tell you about cases of how children actually learned. So this is one way of looking at it, but then I was not very happy because most of the products which were bought by companies were selling at 250 rupees, 300 rupees, 400 rupees and all that. I said, this is making it inaccessible to most children. So we, again, your aspiration comes into picture. How do I reach the bottom of the pyramid? So I gave a constraint in one year saying that your product should not cost more than 15 to 20 rupees. It's a game, but it is to be 15 to 20 rupees, and it will be sold in the train by hawkers. They come and sell this 20 rupees, 25 rupees products. Interestingly, no game suffered. They were as good games as they would have done with them, but they found a way of saving money. So I thought, why not push the envelope further? So I said, let's do zero cost game. There is no cost at all. And that also became possible. Students came out with drawing something on then playing with it, and in the process you learn arithmetic, you learn clock, but they started using the body. Children use their body to understand things. Now this is an interesting possibility. So every time you push an envelope, there's a lot that you learn. Many times we think it's not possible, but basically designer should be pushing envelopes all the time.
It feels very unreal actually to come up with a zero cost game.
Yeah, but they're there on the YouTube. The zero cost game.
Yeah. Cool. I think I would like to conclude with one last question, which actually will try and summarize whatever we have been speaking about. Is what are your thoughts on like the future of education, design education in the country? And
future of education is good and bleak both. Design education is being highly sought after now. You can see the number of schools that open. Now there are, we started with 2 schools, but now there are quite a few. And each city has schools now. So apparently there is a demand. But at this point of time, there is no control on any of them. Everybody wants to experiment something on his own, and they're doing it. And this is not bad. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad or anything.
And it's
like
obvious
that.
given
because it's a new area, so people are kind of... and there's no central authority which tells them what to do, what not to do, except the number of years kind of thing. So people are experimenting. I hope over a period things will stabilize into that. But the bleak part of it is something which people don't realize, that if you go to a private school, which is what most of the new schools are, they're not government schools, you pay enormous amount of fee. Now, if you pay that kind of a fee for 4 years, how will you work for NGOs? There's no way you can do that. You would not be able to serve certain section of society because you already invested so much in education. You would expect returns. And this is exactly what has happened in medicine.
Very true. Very true.
People pay to be doctors, they're private colleges and all that. But when they come out, they already have either a loan or his father is in debt. So they have to find a way to earn money as quickly as possible. And that's what will happen in design. That you would not, all this serving the weaker section and all that will go. There's just no. Or, government funded and government aided schools will do that, and the rest of it will be done by rest. Something of that kind will happen. So I'm seriously worried about that fact, that you would never find a way of handling this.
It sounds slightly...
No, it's something to ponder on. No? That's my feeling. We haven't... we looked at, okay, let's make it accessible, make it easily available to large number of people, which is fine, which is a good and desirable goal. But the cost associated with this will prevent some application for them. For instance, any of this private school, nobody will join. Suppose tomorrow government needs design, nobody will do that because payments will not be there. So this is the difficulty that people will face.
And any thoughts on how can the government or the society can or the institutions itself can be designed in a certain way to avoid this to a certain extent, obviously?
Actually, yes, I have very strong thoughts on this. First is, education was never a business at least 20-25 years ago. It wasn't a business. It was run by trust, a non-profit. None of the schools were fancy, but they imparted education. The focus was education, not the aura that built through buildings and things like that.
A lot of fluff around.
That wasn't there. Now, moment the private institutions started fighting with each other for better students and things like that, they had to create many other things. They had to create a brand. Now people talk about brand and things like that, which is something which was never there and was not required either. People, good schools were known because they were good schools and not because they had advertised more or things like that. So the only way to do is to stop looking at education as a private enterprise. Let the trust handle it. But trust, again, there are a lot of people who make notionalist trust and make money out of it. But that's not what I'm interested in. They run and there are some schools which have succeeded in doing that. At least I am involved in one school, design school, which has no fancy things, but great education. The people who are committed, they work there hard, they experiment, but they don't have this style. So that's the future. That should be the desirable future. I don't know whether that will be the future.
I hope these words come true very soon. I'm very optimistic about this happening sometime down the line when there is a lot of adharma happening. But yeah, let's see. So I think this is a good note to end this. It was wonderful talking to you. Got to learn a lot of things. And thank you once again for giving us your time.
Okay, thanks, Kedar.
Yeah.
It was a good opportunity for me to talk.
Yeah.
And express my views also.
Yeah. Cool, that's it. Thank you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Savan, Stitcher or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.